today, Diane asked me, what's the title? I sent her one the very first time that Mark asked me to do this because I thought that's what I should do. So now I need to come up with a title every single time. And the one I put on, if you saw the email today, you would have seen the title is Tested and Approved. I hope that that is the emphasis that I can come across with. So, James chapter 1, verses 12 to 18, that is my focus. I want to focus on verse 12, but there's a lot of good stuff in 13 to 18 that I fear that I might get tied up in that and not have time to actually do what I want to do with verse 12. But we'll look at it. We'll try, see what happens. So James chapter 1, verses 12 to 18. Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial, for once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I'm being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, and he himself does not tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is carried away and enticed by his own lust. Then, when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my beloved brethren. Every good thing, every good given, every good thing given, and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow. In the exercise of his will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, so that we would be a kind of first fruits among his creatures. So all kinds of stuff in there that, I could spend a couple hours going through all this. And I know you would be not lost. You would shut me off after about 20 minutes. So that's why I'm trying to stay close to my 1 hour time. I'm going to move this thing so I'm popping my P's and making a noise with my T's and all that, and it's going to be distracting. So I want to start with the very first, verse 12, the first verse there. I'm kind of thinking that's the promise here. And this 12 to 18, verses 12 to 18 seems to be a complete thought. Before verse 12 is something totally different. After verse 18 is something different. So this seems to be a self-contained thought here. Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial, for once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. That's a fantastic statement. Does that sound exciting to you? Yes.
Bring me the trial.
Bring it on. We're good. When I was studying this, I kept having to pick, I don't know, this may show a little bit of my age. How many people here have ever heard the Ballad of the Green Beret? Yeah. Notice it's, the grayer-haired people. That came out, I don't remember exactly. It would have been in the late 60s, early 70s. And it was written and composed and sung by a Green Beret. I believe it became the theme song of the Green Beret. They picked that up. Barry Sadler, I think, if I remember right, that was the guy's name. But I keep thinking of that song when I think of this perseveres under trial. Because the whole song is about how the Green Beret, they test their men. Not everybody that goes in to be a Green Beret actually becomes a Green Beret. It's a lot like the Marines. They will, I've seen the one billboard where, they show the sword, the Marine sword, and this is earned, not given, that concept. And that's what this verse is saying here. Blessed, and that's this idea of blessed is maybe kind of foreign to us, because you could easily in our language today translate it as happy, but happy in our language today just doesn't quite get it. It's describes a believer who is in an enviable position from receiving God's provisions, which literally extend his grace benefits. That's what that, and many times that is translated happy or fortunate or whatever. We have such a light idea of the word happy, so I tend to not use it. But blessed is the man who does what? Perseveres. Perseveres. This is that concept where I think of boot camp. And I'll be honest, never been there. When I got out of high school, the draft had been abolished from Vietnam. And I had gotten saved or became a Christian, do whatever church term you want to have in there. Started following Christ, whatever, when I was 16. So it was right about a year and a half before I graduated from high school. They were pulling troops. Actually, troops had been being pulled out of Vietnam for years. Saigon fell 2 months before I graduated. So in my world, everything was over. No need to join the military. And God had other ideas for me anyway. So I never did get into the military. I'm a military brat, but I did not serve in the military. But I keep thinking of this, the boot camp. Striving, persevering under trial. And that idea of persevering is 2 words put together. It's basically to stand under and kind of hold it up is the idea. And it's written in a way that it's something that's ongoing. It's a constant ongoing action. So this person is somebody that is going to remain under and bearing up the load, like Atlas, the statue of Atlas, the I guess that's a Greek god, I don't remember now, but, holding up the world, you got this big burden that you're carrying. That's the idea of perseveres. The person that hangs in there in the midst of trial, in the midst of something that is just testing you, you persevere. You stay in there, you fight the battle, you don't turn and run. You're not just saying, that's not for me, and turning and going somewhere else. Blessed is the man that perseveres under trial. Now, that word trial, this whole set of scriptures, these, 6 verses, there's trial and then tempted. The word tempted is 4 or 5 times in there. And the word trial here, same word, same exact idea. Although one is in a positive sense and the rest are in a negative sense. That one word, depending on the context, can mean, have a positive trial. Trial doesn't necessarily make us think of temptation. Temptation makes us think of, what does temptation make you think of? Sin, making us want to do something wrong, to do something bad. So the first one here, trial, blessed is the man that perseveres under trial. But then all the rest of the tempted, temptations, things like that, they're all the same word. So we can kind of play with that concept in here. So blessed is the man that perseveres under trial. Perseveres. When you stick it out, because, and I'm losing my text here, for once he has been approved, he will then receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. So if you're going through a trial and you persevere and you get stamp of approval, the good housekeeping seal, then you will receive the crown of life. Now, the rest of this just all kind of modifies all of that and gives explanation, goes into detail, goes into some of the things that may go into that trial. So that's where I want to camp. I want to stay there, but there's so much here that, like I said, I'm going to have a hard time getting back here. But that is the key that I want to look at today. Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, For once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life. And that's the crown that's made of life. It's life is the crown. So we will receive the crown that is life. But we do have a lot of other things here. So the next section, verse 13, I kind of titled that the smoke and mirrors, because apparently somebody was saying, oh man, this temptation is coming from God. And James was trying to write to say, no. That's not quite the way it is. Let no one say when he is tempted or trialed or under trial or under test that I'm being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil. So that word evil there is giving the context for all of these, that it's a temptation to do evil. So taking that back to the very first temptation or trial, testing, that can have that negative meaning of, when we are faced with a temptation. So God can't be tempted with evil, and he himself does not tempt anyone. God is good. He doesn't tempt us to do evil. There are places in Scripture where you will read that God tests his people to see what's in their heart. He will put them into a situation to see which way they will pick, but he won't throw the temptation at them. So let no one say when he is tempted that it's coming from God, because God can't be tempted, and he doesn't tempt anyone. But the cycle of death comes. And this is a real interesting concept that James wrote here. But each one is tempted, again, when he is carried away and enticed by his own lust. Each one is carried away. The idea, any fishermen here tonight? Any fisher persons? I'm sorry. Can't say all men. Okay. When is it come? When's trout open? Anybody have the date? Then you're not fishermen if you don't know when opening day is. Is it Easter Sunday this year? There's one fisherman. But seriously, fishermen know this principle extremely well. What do you have to do to that trout? You have to bait it, you drop, especially a couple of weeks into the season, all the stupid ones are taken. Then the smart ones are harder to get. So what do you have to do with them? Where are they first? They're hiding. They're under the rocks. They're in the roots and stuff that are in the stream. They're wherever they can find. So what do you have to do to them? You have to tempt them. You have to throw something that looks really juicy out there. And everybody's got their secret weapon. You got the eggs, I forget what to call them now. You can tell I'm a fisherman. Power bait, or scented plastic worms or flies, whatever you're using. You've got to tempt them. You've got to throw something out there for them to say, is that worth going after? And if they think it's going good enough to go after, then you may have a chance. If not, then you're just wasting your time. So every single human being has this fight. Every single human being has this fight. It's not just certain people, not just people that aren't following Christ. It's everybody. We all struggle with this. So each and every individual is tempted or tested. The bait's out there and we say, that looks good. That looks appetizing. They're tempted, and then they're carried away. And that's where this idea of fishermen, it's taken from hunting. I read a story, I guess it was in Pennsylvania Game News. This guy was saying he took his bear to measuring station, the bear station, so he could get his bear all measured. And he had a really good bear. And then his wife started talking, and, yeah, he shot him right there at the apple pile, and, you're not supposed to say stuff like that. This guy had put a big pile of old apples out to attract the bears, and then he shot the bear while it was there at the bait trap. And in Pennsylvania, you're not allowed to do that. In New York, I think you can, but in Pennsylvania, you can't. So this guy got in trouble for it. But people that hunt animals or fish animals know how to entice them, how to put something out there that looks really great, but then in the end, we'll come back around and get them. So we get carried away. We get enticed by those things that are inside of us. So that's scripture. And yeah, I'm buzzing through here because I want to come back around to verse 12. But each one is tempted when he is carried away and enticed by. We are tempted and enticed by. No.
His own lust.
Yeah, that scripture there says his own lust. We all have something inside of us that we still have to work out. We will constantly be working on something, and there will always be something that bait can be dangled in front of us, and we're going to say, well, think about it. That looks good. And that's where the decision process comes in. So our own lust, those things that are in our hearts. Now, the word lust there can have positive connotations to it. Let me get to it. There it is. Passionate desire. Can we have a passionate desire for God? We can definitely have a passionate desire, something that just drives us towards God. That would be a positive spin on this word. The other side is a passionate desire that drives us towards something other than God. A passionate desire to go a different way than towards God. So the idea, again, is, it's words are words, and this one can either be a positive or a negative connotation, depending on the context. So here's the reality of the situation. Don't be deceived. Don't be deceived, my beloved children. Every good thing and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow. And in the exercise of his will, he brought us forth by the word of truth so that we would be a kind of first fruits among his creatures. My timer, where is it? 41. I only spent 20 minutes so far. That's good. I don't want to go over. I don't want to bore you. Because look around. Notice there's some people missing. Do you know why they're missing? Because they didn't show up. Why didn't they show up? The weather. People are enjoying some warmth right now. In the time change, the sun's actually up now when you come home from work. So now we can actually go outside and enjoy stuff. So I don't want to hold you too long because I know that's something that you may want to do. So don't be deceived. Don't go astray. Really, this word for deceived, it's the root word for the word planet, the wandering bodies in the sky. So this idea of wandering off, don't be deceived, don't wander off, because that is not the reality. The way things really are is not the way that you're thinking of them as you're being tempted by your own lusts, or your own lusts are being tempted and you're being pulled aside here. So don't be deceived. Don't go that way. But remember that every good thing given, every good thing given and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights. So I rushed through that to come back around to just touch base. I just wanted to touch base with all of that to come back around to the verse 12. Verse 18 there, I included it simply because it was part of the context. But that particular verse, I think, applies only to the people that James was writing to because of the idea of first fruits among his creatures. I don't think that we could be considered the first fruits after about 2,000 years. Okay, I don't think we're the first fruits. So I believe that particular phrase James was writing to the people that he was writing to. He was saying, hey, look, we're at the beginning of this whole thing that God is doing, this new movement that God is doing called the Way. We are the first fruits, the very beginning of this. So I think that verse was to them. So let's go back to verse 12. Because that's, like I said, that's where I want to camp. This is the promise. Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial. And you mentioned trial. What I want you to do is think about one time, and I'll specify one. Maybe I should say the most recent one, because that happens over and over and over again. Think of the most recent trial and struggle that you have had. Get that pictured in your mind. Look at it. Think about it. What was going on? What was happening in your world, to you, at that time? How bad was it? You say, really bad. Or, it could have been, I had trouble picking between a Big Mac or a double cheese, whatever, And that could be you could say that's a trial. For some people that have trouble making decisions, that could be a problem. But I'm thinking something very, something that stared you in the face and dared you to live. You got that in your mind? Because we all face it. And if you haven't faced one of those, don't worry, you will. There comes a time in life where you will be faced with just a horrible decision or a horrible trial. You'll be under pressure. You won't know which way to turn. You got that in your head? What was going on? Let's think about it. If you could step back and look at the situation as it was going on, maybe like a video camera. Let's pretend you were the video camera. You were videoing what was going on there. What would you see as a video camera? What I'm trying to do is take the emotion out of it, because in great trials, for me, it's just horribly emotional. And I can't think straight when emotions are flowing. So if we just step back and look at the situation outside the emotions, what was going on there for you? Was it some outside influence that was, putting pressure on you? The job or lack of job? Or, I was just talking to a guy, met him at the grocery store, worked with him in one of my former jobs. Yeah, I just got laid off. I'm thinking, wow, that company's laying off. That's really bad when that company just lays off. So I felt bad for the guy, because he's older than I am. So is he going to find a job? What was going on? How were you responding to that? Were you responding like you would have liked to respond? Probably not. In that trial, you probably were lashing out at somebody or something, or less than friendly. What was somebody else doing to you? Were they cheating you? Were they selling you a used car that just didn't work? Something like that. Were you in a situation where you were feeling taken advantage of or something? Yeah, I'm trying to get you to think about this issue because how you dealt with that is where we're going. Persevered, held up under. Has there ever been a time that you felt like you just couldn't go any farther? Yeah? What was going on at that time when you just couldn't, you just felt like, forget it, this just isn't worth it? What was going on? And Courtney's not here, so I have to be the runner. I'll even run the microphone. Fear?
I don't know if that.
Okay, fear?
Fear.
Fear. Yeah. Fear was going on. Something. Fear of something. What was going on in your life at that moment? Now, again, hard times are everybody's. We're all in that boat together. Yeah, does anybody want to, what was going on? What was going on whenever you felt like that trial was just unbearable? Okay.
Just say with severe clinical depression, let's just say the trust and therefore the fear and not even know what you're afraid of. I mean, insane, shaking, frozen, paralyzing fear.
Yeah.
They're, the kind that brings you to your knees and just take me, Lord. Take me.
Yeah.
22 years of that, yeah. Once I had the trust, I'm not really ready.
Yeah. So, it gets you. When you get there and you can't get out of it, it holds you tight. Yeah.
Usually what happens with me is that I've actually taken my eyes off of the Lord and put it back on to myself. So I've been kind of like really messed around with where the strength and the power really is. And I've kind of noticed that usually it's me. It's not the Lord going away. It's me kind of.
Yeah. I ain't moved.
Hi.
That's what the Lord tells us. You've heard that story, right? The old couple driving down the road and the wife looks over at the husband and says, "You remember when we were kids and we used to cuddle in the car, when they had bench seats in the front? Do you remember that?" And he looked over her and said, "Well, I ain't moved." So, one of us is moved. Yeah. So a lot of times that's what gets us into trouble. But the trial, you start thinking, I can't take it anymore. We can get there. And it's a lot of times it's that issue of we drift away from God, which is what the temptations are all about. Yeah. What we need.
What I was going to say was what typically happens to me is I start having like those thoughts come to you like this is never going to end. And that's why you feel like you want to give up, especially if what you're going through involves someone else and it doesn't seem like they're going to change and you start focusing on what they're doing, and that overwhelming sense of this is never going to end makes you feel like you're in the hamster wheel. So you get tired and you feel like I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily a bad place to be, honestly. But yeah.
It feels pretty crappy.
Oh, it does. Last week I was there, and it just was horrible. I hate it. But I put myself in those situations, and so, suffer the consequences of my own behavior. So we struggle with that. And when we persevere, now that word persevere, or this statement, let's read it. Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial. So that's what it says. Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial. Go ahead.
For me personally, like with my own, addiction that I've struggled with for quite a while,
I felt that, whenever, I have fallen or, people want to call it backslid or whatever it is,
Yeah.
You sometimes feel like you're all alone is the first thought. You feel like, oh, I'm this bad, rotten person. And then,
Yeah.
it actually causes me to draw near to God,
Okay.
because I actually seek Him even more. Because for me, I feel like that's my way out. My relationship with the Lord is, I want to know Him more, and I feel that, hey, if I, Lord, you can help me, and my relationship with you is what can help me, and you can make me stronger.
There you go. Right. And I'm sure you've seen the poem or read the poem about the footsteps in the sand, and Lord, that was when it was really bad and there's only one set of footprints. And then Jesus says, yeah, that's when I was carrying you. So when we get to that point, yes, the Lord picks us up, carries us. He does a lot of the work. So the perseverance here, it says, blessed is the man who perseveres under trial. That's what it says. What does it not say here? The human response to trial looks like what? Work. Looks like work. Or is work a trial? It depends on your feeling about going to work. But yeah, it's a trial it's work. It's heavy. It's hard. Well, what does this not say? And it's easier if you think about sometime when you watched somebody else under trial and how you thought of them and their performance during a trial. What do we normally do when we see somebody fall?
Judge.
We judge. And Christianity is probably the only place where we kill our wounded. You fall, and all of a sudden you've got everybody in the body jumping on you. Not necessary. That's a gross overstatement. There are many people that won't, but yeah, we there's a big problem.
Well, and that's probably why a lot of people won't come out and say, hey, I'm struggling with this or I'm having a problem with that, is because they feel like they will be judged.
Exactly.
And no one will stand with them and say, I'll hold your hand and I'll walk with you.
Yeah. Or I will even carry you along the way. What else? What does this not say? That's okay. Okay. There you go. It's, so there you go. So we have to go through these trials. Well, maybe hang on and you'll get some answers as we come to the end of this. Well, maybe. Okay, well then let's keep moving and we'll try and bring some of that together. Yeah. Oh. He's tired. It's been a long day.
Kind of off of what you were saying, I think what happens is because we fear that we're going to be judged, at least this is what happens to me, then I isolate myself.
Yes.
Instead of going toward support, I pull away from God, I pull away from people. And as you do that, the enemy just attacks your mind, kind of like what she's talking about. And so all these thoughts come to you, and if you don't focus on the truth to sort those thoughts out, they will carry you away into a place of darkness. You feel overwhelmed, you feel isolated, you feel lost, and then you beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Right. It's controlling those, taking those thoughts captive is
So-
what freed me from all of that stuff.
Okay, so this is, I think I was hoping somebody would say it like this, because this is the way I was thinking about it. It doesn't say anything in here about failure. It is not saying condemned is the person that fails. It doesn't say that nasty, no good sinner doesn't deserve to be in the church. It doesn't say that. What does it say? Well, let's look at this. We'll look at the scripture. Well, let's look at the scripture. Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial. That idea of perseveres doesn't have anything to say about failure, about your shame, about anything other than keeping on, keeping on, keeping on. Just constantly doing what you know to do to draw closer to God. Persevering has nothing to, well, I shouldn't say it quite that way. Our behavior in our perseverance builds it up or tears it down. I mean, let's talk about the next few verses there. Let me find the right verse here. Let no one say that when he is tempted that God is tempting him. No, God is not tempting you. You are being drawn away by your own, something inside of you. Those things that are inside of you. Those are the things that get tempted. Does the security of money sound good to you? So maybe the dangling of greed. They asked, I guess it was Jay Rockefeller, how much money does it take to be happy? I mean, he's got more than any one of us would say. And you know what his answer to that was? $1 more. That's what it would take for him to be happy. It's just $1 more. Don't know if he's greedy or not. I'm not his judge, but that kind of sounds like greed there, or has an issue with money. So this idea of testing, the test, it's going to be hard. I mean, how many of you in school knew all the answers to a test ever? Oh, yeah. Every now and again. Now, did you make the test up? No. Okay. Well, then you're pretty good. But the test is going to be hard, okay? A test is not a test unless it's hard. How many people here are tempted by Brussels sprouts? Okay, that's okay. That's not a problem ever. But you won't be tempting me with Brussels sprouts anytime. Beets. How many people here? Pickled beets. stop right here. I've tried to eat them. They go here and they stop. So you won't ever tempt me with pickled beets. So that kind of a test is not, I can pass that one. Simple, great. But there are other tests that I fail. Apple crumb pie. You know, anything chocolate. Yeah, daughter sent a picture to the wife of a little girl, and it says a bedtime snack. It's a chocolate bar about this big, you know. And the kid's eating the chocolate bar, you know, bedtime snack. But a test is going to be hard, and it's going to be something that you see as good. I shouldn't use the word good. As desirable. That'll work. You see it as desirable. Uh-oh. Yeah, desirable. However you spell it's good for me too. This is something that we see as something good because that's what it says. We are drawn away. We're tempted. We're brought aside by the lust that's in our heart. Somebody said something about other people being, you know, what other people are doing and our desire to help them or help them to have a different kind of a life, and we get all tied up. But it's our own desire of wanting to help them. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. If you would measure me with the criteria for codependent, I'm right there. Every one of them. I'm fairly codependent. And so other people's behaviors, I have a tendency to want, not everybody, I just pick certain people. And, you know, then I try to control that by doing something in my life, thinking if I do this, that, you know, it's kind of like an abused person. If I control my behaviors, that's going to make that person act differently, so then they won't beat me. So I change my behaviors to affect them. Doesn't work, but we think that way. So we see this test as something desirable, something that we can do that will benefit us. We're drawn away. We're drawn away from, and the next verse says, don't be deceived. How are we being deceived? Yeah, we're being deceived thinking that those things that we see as desirable are actually going to fulfill us. That lust that says, yeah, I think that thing out there is really good. That, I don't know, let me think of a car, that Lamborghini, that Maserati, you know, or maybe just that BMW. You know, I need to have that because it's going to make me happy. No, it's not going to make you happy. It's going to make you pay bills, another bill, you know, a higher bill. So the test, we see that test and we are drawn to it. I heard a sermon. There was a guy, well, pastor, that preached a sermon about this idea of temptation. And in this sermon, he said, you have about 15 seconds from when the temptation hits you. And I think he was being a little bit facetious on purpose, but you know, he said you have about 15 seconds between the time that temptation hits you and you decide what to do with it. You know, and there's some good thinking in there. You know, if we get hit with this temptation, we're drawn away. You see that thing over there, and you say, In that time period, you have to decide. What did Adam and Eve, I won't even bring Eve into it. What did Adam have to decide about? Remember the original, the first temptation? What did he have to decide about? Whether to eat that fruit or not. He had to decide. The enemy was there. Well, at that point, it wasn't even an enemy. It was just the serpent was there. You know, was tempting him to do what? To do something other than what God had expressly said to do. Well, It was disobedience, basically. He did something that God had told him not to do. So the test is the key here. What is the test? It's going to be, and at first, a temptation seems pleasurable. At first, that first bite of apple crumb pie or Dutch apple pie or cherry pie, any kind of pie, except for maybe coconut lemon meringue. Nah, those are all right. But, chocolate chip cookies, the only kind of cookie. Every other cookie is a pretender, okay? Chocolate chip is it. There's just no other cookie. So those are, yeah, I can eat that. And then maybe the next one. And then I've been trying to be intelligent about it. At Big Oak, not the Big Oak, the butcher shop, they put dozen cookies in a nice little tray. Fantastic cookies, $3.79. See, I can't even tell you the price. And I'll take those back to work. I work right behind where the butcher shop is. I will. I'm going to only eat one. This is going to last me all week long. And then when I wake up and see that there's only 4 cookies left, that's a problem. That's a problem. And then I have to start thinking, what was I thinking? Then what happens is, one day I go to the doctor and he says, you're diabetic. I'm thinking, nah. But all this, all the symptoms hit. Yeah, I got to be. Now I got to take stinking pills because I was not able to pass this test. There's a lot of other things involved. I'm making it really simple. But you get the idea. At the beginning, it seems real good. And I'm gonna be real sexist here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 men here, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 men here. 5 of us have problems with pornography. I'll put it to you straight. 5 of us have problems statistically. I'm not a prophet nor the son of a prophet, but statistically, Christian men, 50% of them have a problem with pornography. I'm in there. I have since I was not that little, I've been this size since I was about 13. So yeah, since about 13. That's just the way it is. With the way technology is in our world, it's so easy anymore to get trapped in that. It seems like a great idea at the moment, but what happens? You start going through here, we see it as desirable, but then what does it do? Let me go back to this scripture. Each one is tempted when he's carried away by and enticed by his own lust. Then, when lust has conceived, see, lust isn't necessarily the problem here. It's the entertainment of it. It's the allowing that to continue. It's that 15-second gap from the time the temptation comes. Because, like I said, you are not going to tempt me with Brussels sprouts. I can decide that in a half a second. Get out of here. But something that does entice me, then what about that? And what's going on at the moment, what the conditions of life and everything, maybe. But lust, once it has, then lust, let me say it right, then when lust has conceived, so that is a process. There's a process involved in that. When it has conceived, it then gives birth to sin. The temptation is not the sin. It's the following through on that temptation and actually doing it. That's where the sin is. Now, when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death. So you see there's a flow here. There's a process here. It's not immediate. When Adam sinned in the garden, the separation from God was immediate. I mean, Adam took off, didn't he? You know, God came looking in the garden. What did God say? Adam, where are you? You're not here. So Adam took off immediately. He separated himself from God immediately because he understood what he had done, and then it was too late. So when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death. So this test here is going, I want to take that back to this idea of persevered. Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial. We have the test, but what do we have to do when we're faced with that test? Persevere. Persever. See if I can remember that. Persever. I guess, on the end. Yeah, and an S. I'll even add the S. Perseveres. When you have the test and you persevere, again, that doesn't mean if you've never failed. That doesn't mean if you haven't given in to that temptation. That doesn't mean if you have the temptation. It just means you persevere. Persevere in what? What would you say that you need to persevere in? Resisting, which is sometimes futile. You know, like the Borg say, resistance is futile, you will be assimilated. And sometimes it is just totally resisting sometimes. Let me back up. Resisting in our own strength is futile. Because that's what got us into trouble in the beginning, was our own, depending on our own self. So persevere in what? What's that? Still didn't hear you. Persevere in the trial. Okay. Which is what?
In our faith that we can be victorious, that the Lord has it covered, and just keep our eyes on Him. That's what we have to persevere.
Even though it doesn't seem like it. Yeah, even though it really seems bad, which is what Winston Churchill said. At least it's attributed to him. When you're going through hell, keep going. You know, don't stop. Don't quit. Don't get out. Keep going. Keep moving.
I think that, the trial, even if you don't succeed your first time or your 1,000th time when you don't persevere, doesn't mean that you didn't persevere or succeed.
Let's separate those two. Let's separate persevere from succeed, because persevere does not mean you succeeded.
I don't think that you didn't overcome,
There.
I still think that you're on the journey, and I think that you're still going to overcome it.
Okay. Persevering.
I think you're still going to persevere.
If what? If we will continue to persevere, well, see, now you got me doing it. You got me with the idea of success and perseverance.
But isn't perseverance success?
No.
Well, what is perseverance then? If you don't-
Okay, what is perseverance?
It's not giving up. It's like like when you just give up on something, you've given up. Now there are challenges that you might not accomplish, or it's that measuring of success. Like we feel like we're going to conquer everything. I'm probably not going to achieve every single goal that I have in my life. I mean, I'm probably not. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to give up. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to try. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to. The other word that is used a lot, or the same word, is endure. I'm still going to push through things, but I might not achieve every single one of my goals. That doesn't necessarily mean that I failed, I don't think.
No.
But if you're going through a trial, persevered in the trial, then did you not succeed?
I see your thinking there. Yes, you
If we're in
did
a
succeed.
trial And we persevered,
Right.
we succeeded, right?
Somewhere along, okay, let's take that in a,
Not on the right track? Or-
yes, you are. You're okay. You're fine. Because let's take the next phrase. For once he has been approved, then he will receive the crown of life. Maybe that's where I need to tie those two together to bring your idea of the success of perseverance together. We will eventually succeed by persevering and being accepted and approved. Yes, I just wanted to separate the idea of the idea of perseverance, meaning I can never fail. I can't fail in this trial, because if I fail, then I've blown it. I think her hand was up first, if we can do it in order. There you go.
Like what I hear him saying, and I agree with you, and in the context of I've battled several different types of addictions, and the part of the perseverance is I know, well, there are times when you just give into it, like the heck with it,
Yeah.
just doing it. But part of the perseverance is this is not who I am, this is not who I want to be, and then every day that you succeed is a victory. That doesn't mean the temptation isn't there, but then in some of those instances, I've gotten completely free where I don't even think about it anymore. And to me, that is the stamp of approval, because I've finally allowed the Lord to close those doors and allowed the Lord to deliver me to where that's not an issue for me anymore. So when you're in the process, every day that you don't give in is, to me, persevering is
Yeah.
success, is a victory. Gets you closer to the goal.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, I was just wanting to emphasize the idea that many of us feel
I wanted to toss
I
it
know
to
I do.
football.
that if I fall into that temptation, if I give into that temptation, I have failed, therefore it's useless. Let's give up. Let's just walk away. What's going on with all of this?
And that's what I mean, that
Yeah.
you did not.
Right. Yeah. And I knew that's where you were going. I just wanted to separate that concept out. And that's okay. Yes. If we persevere, you fall down flat. It's like this. I don't remember what company is it, Chevy, GM, somebody's using this as one of their, no, I think Cadillac. Dare greatly is it's a Cadillac. But here's the complete quote, and it comes from Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy, I guess it was. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of these could have done. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. That's what I'm thinking of as this perseverance. Yeah, I know that I'm going to fail. I know it. Maybe not tomorrow, not next week, maybe not next month. Somewhere along the line, somehow I'm going to mess it up. And I just, in my mind, I know for me, I watched I don't know, maybe National Geographic's kind of thing, and there was they showed this parade of people in some country, I don't remember, somewhere in the Middle East, and they were walking along and they had these whips, and they were walking and they were whipping themselves in the back. And they'd explain they were doing this for the penance of whatever. The hour's up and I'm not done. And I'm thinking, as I'm watching this, I said, I do that. How long do you beat yourself when you sin? When you mess up and you know you've messed up, you know that was wrong and I decided to do it anyway, how long do you feel bad and you kind of avoid talking to God? Yeah, too long. Any time is too long. But really, how do we do, and I actually have to put a time limit on myself. About the second day, I say, this is really stupid because I've disconnected myself from the one that can actually help me. So I need to really get over this, and I go to God and I repent a whole bunch of times, and then the next day I'll repent a whole bunch of times, But, and what that is that is emotionally ripping ourselves because that's how we do penance. But we don't have to do penance. The blood of Christ covers all of that. He died once for sin and for the sins of all. I'm not saying it that he died for sin. He died for sin once for all. Once for everybody, for all sin. When Jesus died on the cross, it paid for your and my sins of tomorrow. So why should I beat myself up? Sin is bad. Let's face it. It does damage our relationship with the Father, and it does create all kinds of problems. I've heard the saying, where Jesus said, if you look at a woman in lust after, it's as bad as adultery. And I've heard people say, well, then I'll just go out and commit adultery. No. It's, the whole thought of sin starting in your mind is what Jesus was getting at. And yeah, it's just as bad if it's in your heart, as just as bad as doing. But actually committing adultery, how many other people does that impact? Not just you. It impacts everybody around you. So no, don't do it just because you think it's a good idea. So I just wanted to, coming back to this. Yeah, if we persevere, instead of coming to the place where we just say, forget it, and walk away. That's what I'm wanting to pick up on. Don't go there. If you failed, get up, brush yourself off, keep moving. If you mess up again, get up, dust yourself off, and keep going. Jesus is right there with you. That was the point I wanted to get across. Because once we have persevered, we will be approved. Christ will look at us and say, you're my guy. But we had a professor in college, and he taught the book of Romans. That's where I learned this whole idea of grace. Before that, it was always works. And his favorite saying was, you're okay. God thinks you're okay. And I constantly have to keep repeating that to myself. I'm okay. God says I'm okay because Jesus died for my sins. I can't pay for my sins. Some of my sins are so scummy that no way I could pay for them. So persevere. This perseverance, once we have persevered, Jesus will look at that and say, you're okay. I approve you. You have been approved. This idea of approval, properly, what passes the necessary test or scrutiny, hence acceptable because genuine. That thing is watch those old cowboy movies. Somebody would pay in gold with a gold coin. What would they do? Pick it up and bite on it. If it left teeth marks, it was real gold, because gold is really soft. If it didn't leave teeth marks, it was plated. It was something else plated with gold, which would be not nearly as valuable. So yeah, tested and approved and said, yeah, this is the real thing. And what is that? When we persevere. When we, in the midst of our failure, we fail, or not in the midst of our failure, in the midst of our test, we fail, but we get up and say, God, here I am. I messed up again. Please take me back. He never left us anyway, but that's my thought. Oh God, you must have kicked me out somewhere along the way, so please take me back in. Please let me in. But no, that's not really true. God is there. He's always with us. Now, I do want to end up with this. the recovery world. I don't know if you've ever heard anything about AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, any of the anonymous groups. They do have some good stuff in them. And we are tempted most when these things are happening. HALT, that's the acronym for it. We are tempted most. And in the addictions world, they say that this is when your addiction will show itself the most. When we're hungry. When you're physically hungry, that triggers a feeling of need, of want, of desire. When we're angry about something, that will trigger whatever it is that we're being tempted to go into. It will facilitate that. That will help that. I think that's spelled right. Lonely. When we're lonely, when we're feeling lonely, that nobody cares, what is it? Nobody loves me, everybody hates me, I guess I'll go eat worms. When we're feeling that way. And when we're tired. They have found in their, I don't know how many years, 60, 70 years now, I guess, I don't know. They have found that those 4 conditions make us extremely susceptible to whatever it is that tempts us, to whatever draws us away from the Father. What does all of this, when do these things happen in our life? When we're tested, we're being tested. These things happen because we kind of wind up being, that's what happens. We become vulnerable, but we're way too busy. When life is just coming at us like a fire hose, and we aren't taking time to take care of ourselves. When we aren't taking, I can't take time and pray right now. I can't just sit and talk to God right now because I got to get to work. This morning, the other day, it was really sad. Saturday, I jumped up out of bed and looked at my phone. It's 7 o'clock. I got to get going because I got to be to work by 7:30. And then wait a minute. Why didn't my alarm go off? And I look, it's Saturday, and I was in my mind, I'm thinking, oh man, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm going to be able to do that. So when life gets so hectic for us, and it does, that is the name of American culture today. I read one time a missionary wrote that in Africa, he was talking to an African man. He said, yeah, the Americans wear their God on their wrist, talking about their time, watch, their timekeeping, live by the clock. We get so tied up in life that we don't take care of ourselves, and then these kinds of things start happening. You get angry and you don't take care of it. Somebody is just rubbing you the wrong way, and you don't go to them and say, hey, we need to work this out. You get lonely. You don't connect to people. You get tired. You're working too hard. Staying up late at night watching TV. Whatever. Or getting up way too early because you have to pursue something. You were saying something? No? I thought, okay. So these are times when we really don't pay attention to life. And we don't wind up connecting with the Father. We don't let Jesus be our life. And just sit there and just talk to God. That's my favorite thing is first thing in the morning, I'll get up, get a shower, go downstairs, and I'll sit in my chair. And I'll say, good morning, God. That's my favorite time. Hey, God, how's it going? For me, that is, if I miss that in the morning, Marilyn can tell. He said, what's wrong with you? So when we're tested and we persevere, the other part of my big saying was, you'll be approved. perseverance brings the approval. That's what I'm after. I just want God to say, you're okay. You know, he does, but I want to hear it. So there you go. I missed it by what? 14 minutes. Anything anybody wants to add to this? Any comments? Oh, microphone over there. Do a Hail Mary pass.
My name is Mary. Interesting.
Hail Mary.
So just talking about tests and everything, I just want to offer, I guess, just an additional perspective on testing. A lot of the times, and I don't want to offer this as a utopia view because I think it's a reality view that we view tests as like this difficult circumstance. And while they may be very difficult, they're so good. So I just want to encourage everybody here that when you go through these tests to see it as a positive thing, because it ultimately does draw you near to Papa, because he, through those tests, I mean, you learn so much and he's just drawing you closer. So I just want to offer that and encourage you all.
The only time you will really learn anything about yourself and the Father in a test. The only time you will really grow. All the good times, they're great. They're just fun. They don't really help us grow that much. I mean, what did Peter, John, and James, what did they, when they went through the Mount of Transfiguration, they were there with Jesus, they saw Moses and Elijah. They saw them. They saw him talking to Jesus. How did it change them? Nothing. I mean, I was a fan. Wow. But it didn't really do any good. And what did Jesus do right after that? He went down the mountain back to the people because they needed ministered to. Jesus left the mountain. Couldn't stay on the mountain. Peter wanted to build tabernacles and let's stay here. No, there are people that need me. So Jesus, but yeah, trials, great things for teaching. Anybody else? Going once, going twice, sold. All right, get out there and enjoy the warm weather.